Hello, folks. Thanks for tuning in your computer box here. I'm Eric Loy. I'm talking with Jennifer Martin, Jennifer C. Martin, who is, what would you describe your job right now, Jennifer?
I tell people that I write clickbait for a living. That's true. I write for full-time for a company called Topics. They have slideshows, quizzes. It's an amazing job, actually. It's sort of like BuzzFeed, smaller, more fun. And then I write sometimes about religion and sexuality on the side, but my full-time gig is writing clickbait.
And that is a job that I can't even imagine being an older fellow doing these days. It'd be kind of like writing headlines in a newspaper for us back in the day and trying to get as much attention as possible. But with your job, I imagine it's not just getting the attention, but keeping them and having them click further into the story.
Yeah. I think I'm a pretty good writer. It's sort of just it feels like you just are either looking for funny pictures a lot, or you're researching almost like a PowerPoint presentation every day and writing about just stuff.
Is it something you have to do every day? Is it that type of deadline that you're working with?
I try to do one article a day, but I'm actually an editor now, so I edit and I don't get one done every day now.
Is that something that you wanted? I mean, was journalism really something you wanted to do growing up?
I mean, yeah. I majored in journalism in college, and I have a degree in it from Lee University.
I'm sorry about that.
I really wanted to get into that, but I graduated a semester early, so I graduated in December 2009 from college. And at that time, they were like, okay, well, newspapers are dying, and you cannot make money writing online, so good luck. You're probably screwed. And I did, administrative stuff and marketing stuff for the first several years of graduating college, and it wasn't until I got some articles published in Gawker, R.I.P. Gawker,
yes,
that I realized that maybe I could do it for a living, and I just started applying for jobs, and one of the jobs was at Topics, and they had read my articles, and they were like, sure, come on board. They were an even smaller company at that time.
Well, they've certainly expanded, and you've continued to do good work there. How long have you been there now?
When did I start at Topics? I think I've been there since...
was it since Gawker went down or before that?
2016, maybe?
Yeah, so you've been there a little while.
Yeah.
It's for this business that you're in, the time that you've been there, 2 years plus, is almost a lifetime. The way jobs keep changing, and especially for someone who isn't showing up at an office every day. I imagine that's a little intriguing for a lot of people too, trying to figure out what you're doing.
I don't know if I could work at an office again. It would definitely have to be an adjustment. I've worked from home for over 2 years now, so I don't I would definitely have to relearn office life. Before my job, right before getting the working from home writing job, was working at the Supreme Court of Virginia, actually, and so I could only wear very nice clothes there. And I got rid of all of my business clothes, and I got visible tattoos, and I dyed my hair non-natural colors pretty much immediately. So I don't know if I could ever work at a real office again. It would have to be a write-in or work from home job.
I'm not sure you could work at Target right now. work at one of the retail stores if you had too many tattoos, which is a bizarre thing to judge people by. But the working at home situation, because you're a family person too.
Yes.
And how tough is that to prioritize working as an editor and as a writer online and taking care of the family and other things in your personal life too, which if you don't mind, we'll talk about a little bit later. But still,
sure,
it can't be easy. It is easy.
I mean, and my husband also has a job where it's not normal hours. He goes to he does I don't want to say tutoring, but it's more like developmental sessions with kids with special needs. So he will like leave for a few hours and then come back. And I feel like I see my kids constantly. I'm like, they go to school and they come home, and like we have dinner together. And I don't know how people do it when like both parents work full time out of the office. It seems like it would be really difficult.
It's very difficult, especially when you factor in if they're not working the same shift, or they have to get some sort of care for the children for some part of the day, or they end up having latchkey kids. And I think that my generation figured out that wasn't exactly the best way to go.
Yes.
It makes it a little tougher to raise the children the way that you would like to, and you find that tough with the job you have right now. Do you think are you able to interact with your children enough to be as much of an impact, an influence that you would like on them?
I think so. I mean, I feel like men don't get asked that question a lot.
That's true. They should.
Yeah. Yeah, like yeah, I see my kids constantly, and I'm pretty strict in like how like the sort of life we live, as far as like not having too much TV or screen time, making sure they have their homework done, making sure they're getting along. I was raised in sort of, I don't want to say dysfunctional because it wasn't like it was abusive, but pretty dysfunctional. There was like lots of yelling, lots of chaos. And so like it's pretty important for me to make sure my kids don't like have that sort of upbringing.
Right.
I just want them to always feel like maybe they like are safe when they're home.
It's very tough these days to find a family that has a male and female influence. No matter how the family is constructed these days, whether it's a same-sex parent household or however the child is being raised, I've always felt that there still needs to be a male and female influence on the young person, no matter how they're raised, so they can shape the way they interact with people later. And I'm not sure that the generation after yours, I should say, has really gotten a chance to do that.
I don't know. I'm really lucky, I guess, in that sense. Like, my parents never got divorced. My husband's parents never got divorced. We've always had a pretty big, like a focus on the family. Not that though I'm sure you imagine I hate focus on the family, the organization. But yeah, no, I have always believed in, like, just making sure I don't know if male and female necessarily is, like, the best or like, that it matters so much, but just, like, having, like, stable adult influences in their lives for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm being an old guy. I mean, it still seems to me that there needs to be some sort of, if not role model, at least something that they can base a relationship on later on in life.
Yeah.
And at the very least, when these young people get older, they have something positive to lean on, because so many, and you being on the internet and it being your job and how you bring in home the bacon with it, you see and so many chances for young people to see very bad influences or easily fall into something that everybody else falls into and not be individual at the same time.
Right. You can get involved in certain communities online and be, like, radicalized or be, like, just, like, have that kind of exposure to negative negative communities in general. And I don't know, I'm a little because I'm so online, I'm a little scared of how much online time my kids get.
Right. Well, you kind of put yourself.
You
You kind of put yourself on the front line with it. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
I say you kind of on the front line with a lot of things.
I know.
And I'll talk about that in just a second. But I really admire when someone has taken the extra step to not so much protect the children, but educate them into what's out there and what they need to watch out for.
Yeah, yes. Well, I grew up in a pretty conservative fundamentalist home, not as bad as, I don't know, like the Duggars or somebody like that, but I didn't have a lot of exposure to many different things. My dad I was born and raised in Cleveland, Tennessee, and my dad started moving around when I was like 11. And then when I was 11 and I went to like a new school in San Antonio, Texas, I lived there for a year, I met people of, like, I had never even met a Catholic person before. I had only ever known, like, Church of God or Baptist people, like evangelical and Pentecostal, and I thought they were so different. And I met somebody who was a Jehovah's Witness, and I had never heard of people who didn't celebrate, like, holidays. And I met somebody who was Catholic, and I'd never met a Catholic person before. I met somebody who was Jewish. I'd never met a Jewish person before.
Mind blown. Your mind just gets blown at that point, I imagine.
Yeah, I was like, what? And so, like, moving around a lot as a kid definitely exposed me to a lot of different viewpoints and people which, like, I don't know if my parents regret it now, but, like, it definitely made me very curious, made me always want to get to know more different kinds of people, be exposed and open-minded. But, yeah. And
through all of this, and you've maintained with exposure to different folks and their different beliefs, you've maintained your Christianity, and that's something that is right up on your Twitter account, a Christian that won't behave or something that doesn't behave, which I also admire. There's too many people out there who are willing to say, well, you don't do this, therefore you're not a Christian. Where are they to judge?
I know. I'm sure there are lots of people who think I'm not a Christian. Sometimes I wonder if my own family, like, thinks that I would go to hell. But I think you have to realize that there are, like, something like 41,000 Christian denominations. And, like, throughout history, so many drastic things have changed about Christian theology. And just the idea that you, even me, but, like, that one person has it right.
Right.
And one person is doing the right thing and everybody else is wrong completely is an odd stance to take, for sure.
That's pretty much exactly the opposite of what the Bible says anyway.
Right.
You don't follow a human what they do. You follow the Bible. and I think a lot of people, there are a lot of Pharisees. And
oh, for sure.
We just try to avoid that as much as possible. Now,
yeah.
Go ahead.
So the denomination that I attend, United Church of Christ, very different from the Pentecostal Church of God that I grew up in. Their motto is God is still speaking, and actually their little symbol for that is a comma. They believe that, like, the Bible and God in general, it starts with a comma, not a period. Like, I mean, obviously Christians don't really believe that everything from the Bible is applicable today, or they wouldn't be eating shrimp, and they wouldn't be wearing polyester, and they wouldn't be letting women even speak in church, depending on the translations and literalist things that they believe and buy. So that's sort of the kind of what they would call progressive, postmodern theology that I subscribe to.
And you have put yourself, I mentioned this a little bit before, you've been very open on your social media accounts, especially Twitter, about yourself, and that you've certainly left yourself open for attacks. And I cringe sometimes, frankly, when I see how you get attacked. You opened up about your sexuality, and it is not for lack of a better term, and forgive me for this, it's not a mainstream thing, as far as anybody can
Right.
tell. But
And I
that
honestly,
that is really go ahead.
well, living in Richmond, Virginia, and being like a part of the Virginia polyamory group here, and like going to such a progressive church, and like not going to a real office job, it could be really easy for me to forget that my quote unquote lifestyle isn't mainstream, isn't accessible, because I guess it's sort of started to feel like really normal for me, and I forget that it's just like that. Maybe it's not so normal for everybody else. Like my family would be horrified, or they are horrified, and they don't talk about it. I don't know. Nobody really talks about it in my family or my in-laws, and then like I'll get messages from people online, even people who aren't religious, who are like, "What is this? This is weird." And this is bad, and I'm like, well, okay, why is it bad? And there's no science behind it. It's just, not what other people, not the sort of life that other people have.
And I imagine a lot of what you're getting is more people who are hiding behind being anonymous, which is very easy to sniper fire at.
My husband and my therapist and my boyfriend and my girlfriend were all like, you need to turn off anonymous, like ask on this. And so I did.
Yeah, you finally did. That's good, because you were getting attacks on not just you, but kind of based toward your family, which...
Yeah, it was scary. It was scary. It was like, your kids are growing up in this horrible home, da-da-da-da-da, you're unstable, this is terrible for them, and I'm like... And it was pretty personal and scary, because I feel like I don't talk a lot. I don't talk as much about my kids on Twitter. I do sometimes if they do something funny, but I don't feel like just because I'm a public figure online that they signed up to be public figures online or whatever.
No.
And like I don't talk about where they go to school, and I don't talk about...
You don't post pictures of them. You don't do that. Yeah, it is very... I imagine it's very tough for you to walk that line sometimes and still be a mama bear. And,
yeah, it's scary.
And still be Jennifer.
Mm-hmm.
And still be Jennifer and still be the mama bear at the same time.
Yeah. I think a lot of people feel like once you become a mom, your entire identity should be being a mom, but I very much disagree. So, and luckily I've had a lot of strong female figures in my life, so I know that I just know that I'm doing okay, basically.
In today's society, you're putting out, you're doing a lot better than a lot of other people are. I mean, there are a lot of people. I live in a town here in Danville, Illinois, where you've got single parent households, no parent households, kids who are living from couch to couch, depending on
that's rough. That makes me so sad to think about.
Yeah, and it happens in these smaller towns and in the rural towns as well. And to see somebody who is putting out the effort and to attack that makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. And but then you've got people who are internet brave, who are going to come after you for that, and that's kind of a little bit of what you got. But I also imagine you're getting a lot of people who are jealous.
I wondered that. I don't like to assume that people are jealous of me, because I despite whatever fame or success, which isn't really, compared to other people, it's minor, it's nothing. But, I'm not trying to do anything to upset anybody. I was just out here talking about it, living my life, not even, making it so much part of my identity, just discussing it because it is a thing that happens in my life, and sometimes I talk about it.
Yeah, and
it's one of my interests. It's something, part of my identity.
I'm thinking along the lines of people who are not just jealous of you, but jealous of the people who be a part of you. Because being online, you get people attach themselves to you whether you want them to or not.
That's true, and that has happened. And so I imagine it happens to people who are bigger, more important writers. I imagine it's even worse. And I guess like the more famous some people get, the more closed off they get. And I guess that would be smarter for me to be more closed off about it. But I'm pretty closed off about my kids. Everything else, like, I just don't see the point in trying to hide everything.
Now, it does make it very tough, and I think that we are, as a society, kind of seeing although at the top levels it's very crusty, but I think in most of society, even among my generation, and to let folks know I'm 53. In my generation, I think you're seeing more, not so much acceptance, but tolerance, and that's the first step, I think. My particular class of high school, we had our reunions here. We have a couple of folks who had come out of the closet since then. They had got no flack whatsoever. I was so proud of these guys.
Good. That's good to hear.
Because in high school they would have, and then I don't know, maybe even I would have joined him. I was an idiot, but hopefully not. But nowadays people are like, hey, your husband, great, hey, nice meeting him. That type of thing. I'm very proud of them, and I think my generation is getting a little better at that, despite what you see nationally.
I actually got a message from an older, I think he's an older in his 50s or 60s or something, man, who was like, oh wow, like me and my wife are polyamorous too, but I would never talk about it in a public platform. So I'm glad you do, because I could never do that. I think more people don't talk about it because there's still such a sense of shame around sex and relationships, especially in relation to kids. But I don't know. I kind of think like violence and hatred, not that my kids are exposed to my quote-unquote sexuality. Like, I don't know what people think, but I don't engage in adult activities in front of them, or so they go to bed at 8 and then I'll like go over to somebody's house, or they'll come to my house. Like, it's not, and like when they see my partners socially, we're just all there chilling. It's like having adults or friends, just not that different.
Yeah, it's something people aren't going to understand because they don't want to understand in many instances.
Yeah, no, for sure they don't want to understand. They don't want to know. They just want to make assumptions, and they want to have this idea of like crazy lifestyles, but it's just not. It's pretty boring. It's pretty normal. Maybe just like a little busier.
Yeah, and it's very tough for a lot of people like me. I'm a one-woman, no-man man. But there's a lot of people like me who would be very tough to understand what you do, what that person that you are, and how you express yourself to other people in that way. And some of that, I imagine, is coming up in the reaction that you get online because of that anonymity, and people get a little brave.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I was growing up in middle school, like, I've always been writing online. I was an early adopter of social media. I had, like, GeoCities and LiveJournal, and, like, grew up on, like, Zynga and then, like, MySpace, and then one of the first adopters of Facebook. And so I've just always been talking about my life online publicly. I don't know why. Maybe there's ego attached to it, but I think it's too late to stop. And, like, I remember when I tried to be quiet about my beliefs because my husband was working at a super conservative school. And so I was just trying to be quiet and well-behaved online. And it didn't even work then. Like, I still, like, would post, like, a link about supporting gay rights or something occasionally, and they would get mad. And it's just not worth it to be so closed off and hidden. But I understand that the older generation, like, privacy is really important to them. And I guess, I mean, privacy is important for, like, my kids, I think. But, like, they didn't sign up for their mom to be on Twitter talking shit. I'm sorry, talking. This is
NSFW on the internet, so go right ahead.
Okay. So, but like, I've always been sort of like that, and when I try to, like, not be myself, when I try to keep my opinions to myself, when I try to be, I guess, reserved and quiet, I cannot do it. I've tried. I guess, like, if I tried really, really hard, but I would probably give up a lot of my career and, like, online friends and online communities to do it.
True.
and
Also,
then I would be lonely and sad at home.
and also, you have been open about some problems with mental health in the past. I imagine not being open would be deleterious to that.
Oh my God, I believe being open about mental illness is one of like the best things that I do, because so many people struggle with it, and so many people, and I've struggled, and I guess like recently I've had some messages like, oh, your mental illness is because of your polyamory, but that's not true, because I've been mentally ill. Like, I started going to see a therapist when I was like 8 or 9 years old. My parents didn't even know what they were doing. I've been through various life circumstances, and I've always struggled with it. It's not a variant to my life circumstances, no matter what like people think. So, and I've had really good treatment recently I had TMS, which was transcranial magnetic stimulation. It's sort of like they put this machine on your head and it like zaps you. It's sort of like the idea of like electroshock therapy, but it's magnets, and you don't have to be like, it doesn't induce seizures or anything.
That actually sounds like fun.
Like, I just had to go once a day for like 4 to 6 weeks, and it was pretty effective, like for treating depression and stuff.
And everybody's got different ways to deal with it. I mean, yours is not going to be the same as, I take depression medication myself, but mine is different than yours, obviously, and Joe Smith's is different than Joan Smith's, and it's going to be very different. And
right.
I think that
I mostly believe that people should definitely always be looking to improve their mental health, and I think being open about my struggles is more of a positive than a negative. Even if people are going to judge me for it, even if people are going to be angry that I don't know, have a mental illness and exist and have other relationships, but like, I'm not going to ever make anybody happy. But like, something like 1 out of 4 people have some sort of mental illness, so
yeah,
I don't see why 1 out of 4 people should have to give up things in their life that they enjoy and their identities just because they struggle with mental illness.
It scares people. It scares people who think that they might have something going on and they don't want to admit it. Maybe it's an ego thing to them. I don't want to admit I have problems with it, and I have situations. I'm sure that is for a lot of people. But with being online, there are a lot of people who are open about it. And that is one thing that the online community has been very good for, is opening up the fact that mental illness or some sort of depression is more widespread, and people are a little more accepting of it.
Yeah, I think it's really good. People in my generation are a lot more open about it, whereas, like, for instance, I would think that definitely both of my parents had traumatic things happen in their childhoods and probably suffer from mental illness. And even though I've been open about it, even though they took me to see therapists, they never saw therapists, and I have always thought, like, maybe they should. But something about previous generations, maybe it was a new field, maybe there's a sense of shame attached to it, not as open. So I'm glad to hear that people are more open about their experiences and more open about getting help.
We're hard-headed, my generation is, and about many things. One thing, too, I want to make sure that folks know this. Being poly doesn't mean being omni.
Oh, yeah.
You're not grabbing everybody on the street and... Oh,
yeah. Somebody yesterday was like, you have several thousand partners, and I was like, I cannot even imagine.
That would be so... I told you, that just sounds tiring to me.
Yeah.
I married a red-headed Hoosier, and and our relationship is perfectly fine. That's well enough for me. But trying to keep up with that many people, no way.
Right now, I have been. I've had one other male partner for about a year, and one other female partner for about 6 months, and I see both of them once a weekish. I see her maybe a little less sometimes. And that's it. Like,
Yeah.
it's not as wild as you think, I assure you.
And people are going to assume that immediately because it's different.
Yeah.
And it's not what they're used to. Again, they may be a little jealous of you. They may be a little jealous of people who are with you, but jealousy plays a lot into it. And the fact that you're able to be so multifaceted, which that I will use that term, multifaceted,
Thank you.
and still maintain your Christianity through everything, including the mental illness, including what you're dealing with online, is fascinating to me. It really is, and the fact that you put the Christianity right up front
Oh, very much.
is
Lots of people, because of Christians having such a bad reputation in the political environment right now,
right.
and supporting and believing in pretty bad things, in my opinion. Lots of people I know won't even call themselves Christians. They'll just say, no, I'm a Christ follower, or I'm nothing. This isn't. I don't subscribe, and I'm no, I'm gonna call and reclaim the label of Christian, because these people, these white evangelical conservative Americans, do not get to be the only people who define the word Christianity. I'm gonna get to do it too. Bottom line, you can think I'm going to hell, you can tell me I'm not a real Christian, but I identify as one, and I believe in Jesus, and I believe in him as the manifestation of God. So I'm not sure, we have that belief in common, whether or not you want to.
It's whether they recognize it or not. You don't have to impress us.
I don't.
Yeah, that's the thing. And again, it's been a pleasure talking with you, and I'm glad you gave me a chance to talk with you a little bit here online. Maybe we'll do it again sometime, but
Sure.
some stuff come up. For folks who want to check out your work online, we're going to keep prodding you until you put that book out. But
Oh my gosh.
every writer has to put out a book.
I should write a book.
You should write a book. But for folks who want to check out your work online, where can they find it?
Just go to stars.topics.com. You can also just Google my name, Jennifer C. Martin, and things that I've written for other publications should come up. I've written for Uprocks and Jezebel and Gawker and Time and a couple of other places. So, yes. Don't follow me on Twitter.
unless you're wearing some hazardous material outfits.
That's right.